Ready, set. Alright, so this week we're going to focus on candy, how to draw candy. I'm going to show a couple different ways. One is with graphite pencil, and then with colored pencil, right? Now, I realize in this class, I'm not, supply-wise, you had to do air-dried clay, and due to certain situation, the circumstance, I decided to make the next two assignments drawing assignments. So for this one, I'm going to have two demonstration videos, one with the candy and graphite, and then one with it in colored pencil. So if you choose, you can choose which one to do. You could either do colored pencil or graphite pencil, okay? Now, not everyone has colored pencils right now because due to that supply list, but if you happen to have a colored pencil set and you want to go to the other video to do this one, that's fine. You would end this video now and go find the colored pencil one, okay? But for those that are going to do graphite pencil, I'm going to show you how to draw the famous peppermint candy that's wrapped, your Hershey's Kiss, and then this heart lollipop, right? Which I'm sure you've seen the lollipops where it's more like a circle, so I thought I'd show you how to deal with the one as a heart. Your main assignment next week will be to draw a candy jar with at least 3 different types of candies in there. So you can choose other candies than the 3 that I have here, but I just thought these basic ones would be a good start. So let's get started on peppermint candy. Alright, so I'm going to move this forward just a little bit. And for the sake of demonstration, I will draw bigger so that it's easier to see. So the first thing I want to do is draw kind of like this round shape, but not a complete circle. And things I want you to be careful with is this. You draw like this, and then it straightens out. What happened there? I don't know. We know it's more circular, so we have to draw this curvier. If you ever, a lot of times, this includes me, I have an easy time drawing the curve here, but then having to draw this way is harder. So if that's you, you pick up your paper and turn it around, and then you will have an easier time drawing that circle. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase that because I need the space to draw the plastic wrap. Okay. The next part I want to do is draw the edge of it. So I'm going to draw another little shape like this. Okay. And then I'm going to lightly erase. Okay. And I'm ready to start doing some striping. So as you know, one of the neat things is the swirl. So I'm going to put a little dot in the middle, and I'm going to draw this swoop. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Nike sign, but that swoop like this. Another one, and I'm going to keep going. Almost there. And one more. Then for this part, I'm going to kind of draw them straight down. Okay, so now it's starting to look like that candy wrap shape, right? That candy. Then from here, I'm only going to shade one section because you would get the idea. I'm going to have this attached in Google Classroom so you can see it a little better. But I'm just going to go ahead and shade here. There is one little thing. I would say once you get to here, leave a white space there. You can erase it out later, although it's easier if you just leave that white space there. Now, why would you do that? Well, because when the light hits this edge, it's a white line, not a black line. So that's just the case in anything. Anytime it hits an edge, it's going to be a lighter color. So you want to kind of leave that alone. And then you would keep shading all the way around, okay? I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I would get it to this point, and then I'll show you how to do the wrapper. So let's pretend I did shade it. I'm going to go ahead and kind of put this wrap, this line going around it, and another line going around. And then I get to here, and I curve out like this. See that? This line goes this way, and this line goes into it because it's twisted there. And then I'm going to go out this way, and this is irregular shaping. And then I'm going to add a few more lines going out this way. Shading wise, what I like to do is once I have this edge, I gently bring out a shadow, just like that. And if it's too dark, I like to go in and gently erase. Okay, see how that is? Other things I like to do is I kind of create some extra shaping up there, and then I'll shade that lightly as well. Okay, let's do the other side. So I went this way last time, so we're going to twist the other way. See that? And then this would just go in. Okay. And then I'm going to continue this edge here, and then see how it's starting to look like that twisted wrapper look? And that's going to be good later, because what if for the candy jar assignment you want to not do this, but you want the, you know, the wrapping part, and so you want like little gumballs? Well, you could do that, or those like lemon heads and things like that, so you can change it. I just, for the sketchbook assignment, I want you to practice drawing the peppermint candy with the swirl. All right, I do want to talk about smudging really quick. We never want to smudge with our fingers. Okay, there's oil in it and it will cause your piece to look dirty. In general, if you could do most of your shading just by using a pencil and shading in and making it as clean as possible, that's your best bet. That little bit of texturing made by your pencil helps it to look more three-dimensional. Right here, I'm going to add a little highlight there. So sometimes when it comes to shading, I'm just going to shade real quick right here. You can only get so light with your pencil, right? You kind of go like this, and you can actually, if you gently go over like this, that can help smudge an area too. For really delicate areas, you can use a dry paintbrush, and I only like to do a tiny bit. I wouldn't never use a paintbrush and go like this, or smudge a whole section with it, because you work so hard to make it look three-dimensional, and if you do that, it will make it look flat, and then it goes back to two-dimensional. All right, so you keep shading. I showed you the tips till you get it to the finished point that you see here. Time for the Hershey Kiss. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to my new paper here. All right, so it's the wrapper that I think is interesting for a Hershey Kiss, but the other odd thing, if you were to put a Hershey Kiss in front of you, you would see a reflected light at the bottom. That means the light hits the base and bounces back up into here and creates a reflected light. So there's light that hits the piece, and there's the light that hits the base or the ground and bounces up and hits right here. So that's kind of the key there. Again, I'm going to try to draw a little bigger so it's easier. Create that Hershey Kiss look. I'm going to round this out. It's always not really at a tip right there, a complete tip. All right, so we have our basic shape. I'm always sketchy at first, so naturally it looks a little hairy, and then you would go back and make your single contour line, and that makes it a lot better, right? From here, I'm going to go ahead and add my tin foil striping. So it's like the wrap that creates these little lines. And then I'm going to create a little base section here. This is to indicate that later I need to keep that light for the reflected light. I'm also going to add some little indented lines here. There might be a section there where the wrap is coming unloose. And then we have, of course, that famous little flag that comes out. I'm also going to create a shadow. I like how when you have a shadow, if you were to make it maybe not as wide as I am, you can add that little flag shadow that you see right here, and that's kind of nice. All right, so from here, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and shade, but I'm not going to shade all the way. I'm going to kind of be erratic. Look at that. It's almost like a heartbeat. That's what we're going for. I'm going to do some more over here, more toward the bottom. Again, it's erratic. Right now we're at one value, well, two values, white and this medium gray, but we are going to get darker. In shading, you always work in values from light to dark, and most value charts are up to 6 values. Right, I'm going to kind of bring this up, the shadow. You see it's starting to create this idea that we think of when it comes to a Hershey Kiss wrap. I'm going to put some shadow in here, and then some shadowing here. So I have my two values. Now I'm going to fill in right here, but I'm going to start very dark because right underneath is where it's its darkest. And then we're going to fade out. That means you're going to kind of show a gradation from light to dark, or fade. And then you kind of lightly bring it out. Lightly bring it out. So now, for such a big section, you could see, instead of using your paintbrush or your finger, you could, in this case, gently use that eraser. And look at that. Don't do too much. I don't want to lose, I hate losing the texture part. See how that kind of helps a little bit without having to wreck it. We have our base values in, so now we're ready to go even darker. So now I can press harder and press harder in some other sections, maybe even a fine tip in some points. If it ever gets too dark, just you go in with your eraser and kind of smudge. Sometimes I like to go right over it like this and create an even smoother blend. And I would keep doing this until we're at that point. So you can see I basically just build and build and build and creating that shape. I did add the little letters. I mean, it's just basic block letters when you add it in, and then you shade it. So that shows how to get it started. And then again, in the attached document, you will see the finished version. Let's move on to our lollipop. It's similar to the steps here, but just a little different. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to flip over. And as you know, I have to draw bigger so that you can see. This one I actually didn't do any smudging. I was, I just loved the texture I was able to achieve. So to create this part, I actually, instead of drawing the big outer shape first, because you know what happens. If you draw the outer shape first and then you try to draw this, all of a sudden you get to the middle and it's either too small or too big. So what do? You start with the middle. Start by drawing the smaller heart first, then the outside heart, the second section, and then the last section. That way it comes out more even. Could you do, when you move on to the final piece where we're doing the candy jar and you want to stick to circles? Great. I just wanted to show this in case you choose to do a Valentine theme, even though you're going to have your choice in theme. Make the stick part. I'm going to add a little bow. Here's the trick of the bow. You go ahead and put this balloon shape. Then I start here. Okay. And then you have, I'm going to create a kind of a circular motion there. That inside bow. I'm going to go do the same to the other side. Okay. Right. Okay. And you would shade underneath there as well. Okay. So shaping wise, that's how you do that part. I'm going to go ahead and put the plastic, this little plastic bag going on the outside, and I'll show how to shape that in a second. So how do we do this part? We're going to try to make it look rounded. So I'm going to create that shape like a horseshoe, and then like that. And I just go all the way around doing that. Okay. Then when I go here, I try to offset it. You know how it is. I want to offset it a little bit compared to the other ones. Okay. Then same here. Alright, so that's what I did here. I like to offset it so it's almost more checkerboard than say striping out. So then here, what I want to do is start dark here and fade in, start dark here and fade in. This section I want to make lighter, so I'm not going to make as dark as that one. Why? Because in color-wise, when you see the real lollipop, it was pink and red, so light, dark, right? So that's what I was doing here. If you accidentally go too dark, see I'm trying to even go darker now to make it more like this. If you accidentally go too dark, that's not a big deal. Here's a special trick. You can hold like this for your highlight. And I'm going to hold right here. And this way, if you've ever like over erased a section because this part's too big, to create that really sharp line, you just put the paper over there and then you kind of slowly erase into it and it will create this white stripe there. And that's what I did in here, is I held this little paper right there and then I just gently went like this and I was able to get a thinner white stripe. Okay. So imagine I did that all the way around. How do we do the shading for the plastic? Hold on. Okay. So what I did is I just add little lines here and there, kind of like this. See that? And then just like the peppermint, I kind of shade a little lighter right here and then bring it in. And if it's too dark, just erase it. Okay. So that's how I help to create the plastic part. I also add a little plastic wrap right here, because you know how the wrappers go. They kind of twist in here. And then I shaded here, added those little lines. And I would keep shading until you're at this point. Okay? If you make mistakes, that's okay. That's what erasers are for. And this is a sketchbook assignment. We're learning how to do the shading and how to do the simple shaping.